we're nearing the end of a project that began in 2013, and I was very fortunate to be involved with marks on making what I consider to be a kind of landmark film in terms of honoring the resilience of the Lebanese entrepreneur through the lens of its winemakers. Today we're with Fauzi Issa, who is the winemaker and co-owner at Domaine Tourelles, which is one of Lebanon's oldest wineries, founded in 1868, and I think it's the first winery that actually sold its wine. Chateau Margaux started making wine in 1857, but it was just kept among the monks for their personal use for some time. It is really quite an extraordinary story. The winery was founded by a French railroad engineer called François-Eugène Brun, who came to the Bekaa Valley, which is Lebanon's winemaking hub, in the mid-19th century, to work on the Beirut-Damascus Railroad, and very quickly jacked in his job and founded Domaine René Rostaing. Lebanon back then was at the fag end of the Ottoman Empire. It would soon hand over running of the country to France. Lebanon would soon become independent after that in 1943, and then undergo a bit of a golden age, and then the Civil War, and then the post-Civil War, until we come to the present day with its current problems. And this winery has not only survived all these major historical epochs, in a way it's witnessed history for 150 odd years. And today I'm happy to say that it's as strong as ever. I first met the owners of Domaine Tourelles in 2004, Fauzi's father, and it's a privilege to know these people. They're a great family. It was owned by two families, the Issas and the Issa Khouris. They're good people, and they've really taken a historic company, and they've treated it with the respect that it deserves. And Faouzi is one of a new generation of Lebanese winemaker that's taking Lebanese wine to the next level. When I say next level, it's not just enough in Lebanon to make wine anymore. We have to make wine with a spin, with a spirit that really reflects Lebanese terroir and what Lebanon is about. And we'll talk a little about that later on. So it's a great pleasure to have Fauzi here. Fauzi I've known since 2009. Great guy, great character. I hope some of that character will seep through during this little Q&A that we're going to have with him. So without further ado, I want to ask Fauzi just to bring us up to speed on what is happening in Lebanon today. For those of you who don't know Lebanon that well, the country's been hit by the double whammy of a social revolution that happened in October of last year, which led to a financial meltdown. So as well as having to contend with the COVID-19 virus, which is something that we're all having to deal with, there's also the added burden of a financial crisis. The economy is in tatters anyway, and inflation is rampant. So, add to that, there is over 1 million, 1.5 million, some people even say 2 million Syrian refugees in the country, again, adding to the, again, a burden to the infrastructure and to the economy. So in the last 10, 15 years, Lebanon has not really, has had to face challenges. And so Fauzi, can we start off by just bringing us up to date on what life is like now in Lebanon, May 14, 2020?
Hi, Michael. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. Hi, everyone. Hi, Jamal from New York. Actually, in I would say that we've overpassed the furious period of what's going on in Lebanon. I mean, we've been plus 50 days probably from the first day we were locked down. We are known to be resilient. I mean, this is the topic of today, wine and war. I mean, we are known to be always in war status, and we know how to resist, and we know how to, to do the counterattack, but never been planned, never been prepared to have all the problems of the world in the same period. You know, I mean, we had this big economical clash. I mean, the financial inflation, low purchasing power in Lebanon, and then the COVID-19. I can say that we're adapting now, not as a winemaker, as a citizen. We're adapting. We had a very anxious period in the beginning. We don't know there was no clear vision. But when we acknowledged that this is the same situation everywhere in the world, and not only us, we felt a little bit more relaxed, and we started to adapt easily, probably more than any other in the globe. A bit optimistic and positive, but we're adapting a little bit more because we have much more on our plate. As a winemaker, our anxiety now is approaching a little bit because of the harvest. We're having harvest in 2 months. But again, watching Argentina and Chilean brave winemakers doing their harvest in the peak season of the COVID gave us a little bit more excitement and motivation to attack the season. So I would say that we are more in adaptation now, and we live day by day, as I think most of us now in the globe.
Faouzi, you keep on mentioning this word adapting. Can you tell us a little bit about what it means to be Lebanese and what being Lebanese means when it comes to doing business? I mean, you could argue that the Lebanese were the first businessmen. They were the first people to create a trading empire with the Phoenician era in the second millennium BC, and ever since the Phoenicians, the Lebanese have been trading, and they've had to go abroad to seek out their fortunes after having been, to put it bluntly, fucked over at home by a succession of occupying people, from the Assyrians to the Romans to the Byzantines to the Mamluks to the Crusaders to the Ottomans. So can you tell us a little bit about what it means to be Lebanese and what it means to be a Lebanese businessman, and how that informs how you go about your work in crises?
This is going to be a little bit more honest than honesty. So I'm an agriculture. I'm a farmer, and business used to be something that I was never close to it since I was a kid. The day I came back from France to Lebanon, I understood that in my business, producing great wines is not the key. You have to produce great wines. You have to produce. You have amazing terroir. The great wines will be produced alone, spontaneously. What you have to learn and what you have to work hard is business, because business in Lebanon is in different angle than any other place in the world. The first trip I took to the States, holding my bottles of wines, was shaking from anxiety. I don't know what to say to Americans. Coming from Lebanon, where breaking news about Hezbollah problems, terrorists is all over the news. Tell them, listen, guys, I'm coming from Lebanon to sell you wines. I'll be kicked out from everywhere, So the first thing is to get the resistance and the courage, and to try to sell your product, but using extra effort. If you have an effort of X, I should have an effort of 3X to sell my wines in Lebanon. And can you shut the door, please? if, can you shut the door, please? Sorry. So this is what business is important. So business 101 is in Lebanon, it's harder than any 101 everywhere in the world, because you need to really be packed with a lot of bulletproof materials, and try to know that, I mean, you have a great product, you're convinced, but no one in the world knows where is Lebanon. No one in the world knows what's going on in Lebanon. So this is what made me in the beginning to think that I'm a great motivated farmer. I can do great wines. We have a great terroir that can produce great wines on its own without any magical touch from the winemaker. But the most important is how to sell it, and how to create your industry, wine industry, that can face financial problems, wars, bad political situation. I mean, if one deputy will say a bad word on the news, the second day the market will fall. I mean, we're so much susceptible and not tolerant on everything that's going on outside, you know. And this has created something amazing, that we are resilient and we know how to push harder than anyone else, I think, in terms of industry in the wine. And the first experience that gives you trust and confidence, you'll build that confidence, and you will know day after day how to sell your product and how to create a non-risk firm. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it comes with the gene, you know. You have it in your gene, but you build on it, and you try to use it every time.
Yeah, I think it's. I think what you're saying is extremely accurate. And it was funny, 3 years ago with Mark, we were sitting on a beach just outside Sidon, and we just found a Phoenician wine press, the first Phoenician wine press that had been discovered by the American University. And the head archaeologist was telling us this was a big commercial wine press, and that what probably happened is the wine was made in commercial quantities. We're talking 1300 BC. And he said he was probably loaded onto boats off the coast there, and he pointed to the sea about 15 meters away. And they would have gone off probably to Crete or to Carthage or to Rome. And he said they were doing what Lebanese to this day are still doing, going out into the world and selling their wares and selling their charisma and their know-how. So yes, I agree. I want to go a little bit inland from the beach at Sidon and go to the Bekaa Valley. The Bekaa Valley, to people of a certain age, has connotations of war. It was where the Syrian SAM missile batteries used to be set up. It was the Badlands of Lebanon. You know, all the so-called terror groups of the time had their training camps there. The Japanese Red Army, the Red Brigade, the Baader Meinhof, every militia in Lebanon seemed to be active there. There were major battles during 1982 invasion, aerial battles between Israel and the Americans and the Syrians, planes falling out of the sky. I mean, you name it. It was a conflict zone. It was a place where if you went to, you may not come back. And yet, at the same time, it is the agricultural heartland of Lebanon, where wine has been made for thousands of years. And you know that, you know, you go to one end of the Bekaa, there's a temple of Bacchus, you know, glorifying the culture of the grape. You go to the other end, the Syrian refugee camps, and then maybe at some point in the middle, you maybe have ISIS training camps in the mountains between Lebanon and Syria. Tell us a little bit about what the Bekaa means to you, and what making wine in the Bekaa means to you. And maybe you can dispel some of the myths and tell people about the beauty that is the Bekaa for those who have not been fortunate enough to go there.
You know, I'm starting to believe that the creator, whoever is the creator of the earth, was fair with us. I mean, he gave us the best terroir, you know, Bekaa Valley. I mean, if you are a wine expert and you were asked to draw the ideal terroir. You will definitely go on 1,000 meter altitude, 300 days of sunshine, mountains full of snow, freshness at night, hot weather during the day, dry weather, you don't need pesticides. I mean, we have the miraculous terroir, but the creator was fair. He didn't give us Times Square in Bekaa Valley. He gave us the great terroir, but full of, risks, problems, boundaries, issues. I mean, we have this balance in the terroir of Bekaa Valley. So, disregarding what's going on, 2006 was a vintage where bombs were everywhere. I mean, my father used to tell me, you have to stay home. This year, we don't have a harvest. I mean, we have to accept the reality. We cannot go outside where bombs are randomly thrown everywhere in the Bekaa Valley. But we went to the harvest beginning of August. We didn't spray anything July, I would say, when I say spray organically, sulfur, we didn't start to do the vendange verte, prepare the harvest. And we had one of the best vintage ever. Conclusion, Bekaa Valley is a place where you produce wines without intervention. And the political problems, 4 years ago, I was harvesting where the Zabadani, the borders of Syria, was bombing out. We were hearing the bombs every day. So you need to have a kind of resistance in terms of fear, and as we say, depend on the beautiful terroir, depend on the sun, the altitude that gives you the excellent and exquisite balance in the vineyards. Trust me, I don't have the interest to say that 95% of the great wines are made in the vines. We are a kind of, I've mentioned in the movie, we are the drivers of the vines to the winery. But we don't have to zero stress on getting the high quality in the vines, thus in the wines. And this is amazing ingredient the creator of the globe gave us. And he threw us some of the political problems as well, because he needs balance at the end of the day. In Norway, you have amazing situation, stability. You can do whatever you want, but you have the weather that, you cannot do anything. You cannot plant vines. So, that's what I wanted to tell you. It's not by default,
So in 2006, we were able to harvest because of the ceasefire that happened just as the Chardonnay grapes were ripening. This year, the enemy is not Israel. This year, the enemy is an unseen, invisible virus. What steps are you taking at the moment to plan for the harvest? How are you planning to harvest?
I have to say that we have a tough year this year, not only because of the safety measures. We all know that we have a lot of wines stuck in our tanks, and the export was paralyzed. It's been 3 months. The on-trade, which is the restaurants, Oreca channel in Lebanon, was stopped. So we were, and normally before summer, so the biggest exporter months is Feb, March, April, because we anticipate the hot and the warm weather. So we ship everything before the summer. So this is the first big issue that we have, is that we are trying so hard to empty our tanks, whether we sell or we stock in our warehouses. To be able to stock, we need to pay fresh dollars to bring bottles and imported stuff, because we don't have big industries in Lebanon. So another problem. COVID-19, honestly, it's not anymore on my screen. So COVID-19, the problem of coronavirus, it's not something that will be an obstacle for me for the harvest. If you go to the Bekaa, you do around with me in the harvest, in all the Bekaa Valley, you don't see people that are scared. Especially agriculture people that are scared from the COVID-19. Deja, they are all wearing masks since thousands of years. You know, this Bedouin style of mask. I mean, it's funny. I mean, everyone is prepared. Everyone is. I call Bekaa Valley a locked down city since long time. It's not something new. People that like to be conservative, they work in the land, in the field. They go back home. They take precautions. I don't fear coronavirus. I'm scared about the situation of the farmer, situation of what's going on. I mean, I was today. If you can let me just be a little bit crazy and tell you that today I had a very funny discussion this morning with a friend in the wine industry, in the morning, and I was saying, listen, I have a feeling that, and sorry, excuse me, everyone. I said I have a feeling that in a month or 2 months we will end up with coronavirus, and the president of Lebanon will die from I don't know what, from stomach pain or something else, and we will end up in another deep shit hole, you know. So we don't know what's going on in the future, and we don't have any clear vision, short term or long term. So we need just to make sure that we can harvest, produce wines, keep in the stock, and wait till borders are open. We know very well that we can sell. Madame Waters is one of my big témoignage. She's a big témoin for me that. There is nothing impossible. What we've done in the 5 past years in the UK was practically impossible 5 years ago. And today, people are calling us in the UK. People want to discover what's going on in Lebanon, and it's being the sexy wine in the UK today. Hisham, he's from the UK, as well. I can see his face now. He knows every day he's sending me a senso from anywhere in the world, comparing with my senso, and he's telling me that, it's a big discovery, this senso, because even Hisham, the podafer you sent me, $50 bottle.
Yes.
Compared to senso produced. And the idea is that we have the treasure, we have the capability, we have the skills, the obstacles we jump over. The first few days, as anywhere, it's a bit of anxiety, it's a bit of shaking moments with we don't know what is the vision. The moment we relax, we have a plan. We are people with a lot of plan. We know how to plan the problem and attack and go over it. If you can see my office, I have big whiteboards. You can see all whiteboards: mission 1, mission 2, plan 1, plan 2, plan 3, plan 4, plan 5. We have plan A, B, C till Z. Don't worry, man.
Your confidence is indeed infectious. Maybe infectious is the wrong word to use these days.
Contagious.
Just before I hand over to the floor, you mentioned your Sanso. One of the things that I love about what you're doing is that you are looking back to Lebanon's past, to the heritage, to the 19th century, when the first grapes from Algeria were brought over by the Jesuits, and there was this culture in the Bekaa of these southern French, southern Rhone grapes, the Grenache, Carignan, Cinsault, as well as the indigenous Merouah and Abedi. And you have lit the touch paper, if you want, of reigniting Lebanon's love affair with the Cinsault. And I just want to ask you very quickly how you have seen changes in the styles of Lebanese winemaking since you took over at Domaine Tourelles, and where you see this trend going now, because at the beginning of the 21st century, Lebanese wine was still very much in that classic French style, a little bit international, heavy use of oak, and so on. And now we're moving towards a more wine that has more of a sense of place, let's say, more terroir-driven wines, limited in intervention. How do you see that kind of trajectory?
Michael, the evolution, I've been working in the winery since 11 years, I would say 12 years. The evolution in my style of working, understanding things, producing, being as a challenger is scary. So I was so much, the first year I was a bit by the book, very conservative at producing wines. Yeah, I was 25 years old. I understood that I need to start with a very conservative step, producing wines that international crowd will like it, go in the wood, go in the barrels decision, producing wines that are structured, that can get the enjoyment of the maximum people possible. Year after year, meeting with people, discussing with people, trying to understand that people are searching for the identity. People they want to know the history and the potential of your terroir without imitating the international crowd. I mean, you played a huge role. Everyone played. Everyone that are transparent and close to me say, listen, we see you as a kind of decision maker in the winemaking. I don't need 30 winemaker in the committee to produce one wine. If I like a wine, I can produce it the second day. So I was approached by a lot of people, friends like you, that go ahead, produce wines that can show the identity of Bekaa Valley. Senso was the first success story. And the Senso that I've made, it took me zero effort. I mean, it was 70 years old, beautiful bush vines, grape variety in Bekaa Valley, resistant to the terroir, zero intervention, indigenous yeast, no barrels. I've bottled the first bottle. I've sent it to the champion, Madeleine Water. She distributed this bottle to a lot of press people, and it made a huge buzz. People wanted that. People wanted a wine that is drinkable the second year, not after 10 years in your cellar. People wanted a wine that is $10 to $15. People wanted a real projection of the terroir, of Lebanese terroir and the identity. I challenge every winemaker in the world to produce for me a wine, a Senso 100% that has structure, color, acidity, softness, roundness, complexity that is grown in Bekaa Valley. Simply, you cannot, because there is no Senso in 1,000 meters in the world. And that's why we called it a adopted variety, because it's like the South African that they created their pinotage and they created their identity. We are on this trend. The easiest part was the Carignan, because we got the success story of the Senso. The Carignan is a beautiful, excellent potential in Lebanon. Again, I mean, people are going crazy with this wine. Again, drinkable, no wood, no style of winemaking philosophy. I mean, we need to stop, especially from the Bekaa Valley, creating dreams for the consumer that we are doing magical effort to produce the most structured wines that you have to keep it in your cellar and drink it after 40 years. We need to stop these lies. We need to tell people that 95% of the great wines are being made in Lebanon, in Bekaa Valley alone, and giving this beautiful power potential because of the grape that we have. If I want to produce a great wine with a lot of vin travaillé, I have to go to Cabernet Sauvignon, I have to go to Merlot, Petit Verdot, and all these classical varieties that I need to work hard to make them great wines. But the Senso and Carignan are self-made, man.
Good. Can I now throw it open to the floor? Is there anyone who's got any other question, any questions they want to ask Faouzi?
Just wanted to ask the age of the Carignan. Generally, what was the age?
It's close to 50 years.
50?
Yeah.
Generally 50, yeah. And that's on the market now? Oh, yet not yet in the UK?
That's on the market. We've launched it in the UK. We were faster than the COVID-19, and just launched 2 weeks before the COVID-19 in the UK. It's doing a big results. And in Lebanon, on online sales, people are loving it. I'm doing continuously tasting every day with a lot of people and in the Carignan. Carignan is amazing Mediterranean variety, grown amazingly in Lebanon. People are loving it because it has the real taste of the wine, the real taste of the terroir, minerality, structure, and good acidity. It's 2018. Come on, guys. 12 years ago, I used to laugh on people that wants to open a bottle that has 2 years ago, 2 years old. Trust me. I used to tell them, oh, come on, leave that bottle at least 5-6 years in your cellar. Now, I mean, the scary evolution is that I'm thinking in the opposite. I don't want even to produce my Marquis de Bay and Syrah du Liban in a way that they should be aged to be drinkable. I need to produce them a little bit more open, more round, and give the chance to people to taste these wines easily. I've met with a French, you have to cut me, Michael. I can spend episodes and episodes.
No, I just think what you're saying is a remarkable declaration, because what you're doing is you're effectively flipping the conventional approach to Lebanese winemaking on its head, and it's a very I find it a very refreshing approach. I don't know how many other Lebanese winemakers would agree with you, but I think you set a trend with the Cinsault, and I think that deep down everyone is recognizing now that we need to make wines that are more approachable, that are more drinkable, that have a sense of, as I said earlier, a sense of place and some soul. And we don't need to prove to people that we can make these hugely extracted wines dressed in the most expensive oak money can buy just to prove who we are.
Where is Michael?
It's like he froze.
Quite interesting. If no one else wants to ask a question, I would like to ask one more. Does anyone else want to jump in?
Can I have 2 minutes?
Yes.
If we both analyze why today this evolution is happening, why this evolution didn't happen 20 years ago, and we have to give the credit that this evolution started 20 years ago with with Serge Auchard, the late Serge Auchard, who believed on his own style of wines. But if we put Musard aside, most of the wines in Lebanon were produced by French winemakers, and not any French winemakers. French winemakers that they thought themselves that they were acting like Donald Trump now. Sorry, guys. They were very confident that we know what to produce, we know how to produce, we have our ways of production. And Mark, what do you think?
I think you're right. Continue.
So
that's led to mediocrity.
Yeah. So the idea, these people came to Lebanon and said that Petit Verdot is a grape for Lebanon, Merlot is a grape for Lebanon, Cabernet is a grape for Lebanon. These people came to the owners of the winemakers and told them, listen, I'm the king of the production of the wines. I am an employee in the winery, but I am the winemaker and I'm the magical person. You don't have a right to tell me what to do. So they created a barrier between the winemaker, who's the employee, with the owner. And the owner who should be the soul of the winery. So 20 years ago, wines were produced as imitation of the French wines or any international wines. Nowadays, and recently, a lot of people, young people, I can name a lot of people here, that they are searching to produce their style of wine, disregarding what French people or French winemakers are doing in Lebanon. Because French winemakers, whether we say yes or no, they're producing 90% of the production in Lebanon today. Today, 90% of the production of wines in Lebanon are produced by French winemakers, employees. So being a winemaker coming from Lebanon, from the Bekaa Valley, own my decision, own my walls, my tanks, my vines, I can do whatever I want. And doing whatever I want, ipso facto, it's the style and the spirit and the soul and the identity of the Bekaa Valley. And now this is changing. And this people is showing that, they want to follow this trend to create their identity in the globe.
Yes, no, I would agree with you. I think now, as you said, there is a whole new swathe, a very exciting swathe of young Lebanese winemakers who know the Bekaa, who understand the Bekaa, who understand Lebanon, who understand what being Lebanese is about. And we're beginning to see, we're beginning to see the Merouah and the Calignon from Xara. We're beginning to see more use of Abeide and Merouah across the board in Batroun and in the Bekaa. If no one else has got a question, I'd like to just touch on the white wines, because I think one of the great stories coming out of Lebanon today are the white wines that are really blowing people away with their freshness and their complexity. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience in working with white grapes that are still relatively new to the region and planting them at altitude, and how these grapes have responded and are really punching above their weight in terms of quality, and surprising people who expect white wines from Lebanon to be a bit flabby and something of an afterthought, but no.
Michael, 2019, we doubled our figures in the sales of white wine. We doubled. We normally, healthy growth is 10%, 15%, 20%. We doubled. And this is an indication, two indications. First is the consumer. The consumer is adapting more and more on the Lebanese white wine, the freshness, the natural acidity, and the summer, summer white wines. Two, again, the same story. The French winemakers, they came to Lebanon, their focus was on red varieties, not on discovering the white varieties potential in the Bekaa Valley. Even Pierre Brun, Pierre Brun used to produce 95% of his production red wines, and then 5% of white wines that ended up to be Arak at the end of the day. Consumer acknowledgement and producers' acknowledgement in the white wine came recently, where we all discovered that producing white wine is the biggest cash cow in the winery, because you produce it in September, you sell it after 4 months, you get your money back. And it became economically smarter than any other wine. And so qualitatively, any dream for any winemaker is to produce white wine in high altitude. The high altitude gives you the freshness, the crisp, and the minerality for the white wines. We have all, I think in 10 years, we will be producing 50-50 white wine, rosé, and red wines. Because, the numbers of all the wineries are growing. I know from other wineries that they are growing, insanely every year. And the quality is amazing. The discovery of Merouah, Abeide, and other native crops are playing a huge role in the identity again, in creating something different in the wine and a story to tell.
Thank you. We're just going to wrap up now, but before we wrap up, I want to just go back to the more kind of philosophical dialogue that we had at the beginning. You're now in your mid-30s, I think? 35, yeah. 36. You're married. You've got 3 children. What are your hopes and fears for the future, both for your children, for your family, for your country, bearing in mind that you are just continuing a tradition that many Lebanese have been doing for thousands of years? What's the next 50 years hold for Fauzi, Issa, for Domaine Tourelles and the family?
Again, yesterday Michael told me, do you want to know a little bit the topics of the subjects? I said, no, just hit me the topics on the spot. I don't want to prepare anything. This question, without preparing, the only thing I want to say is, I don't want to say I want to have the best country ever for my kids. I want to have the best kids for my country. So what I want to think is, I want to hope that my kids will understand this country, the limits of this country, the way I'm thinking. And the moment they will start think of that when they take the seat of the captain in the future, they need to understand that it will never be back, in the world. everything is easy, everything is doable. You need to fight for it, and you need to understand that Lebanon is the best. It has the best mix of everything: the story, the charm, the people, the food, the weather, the booze, the open-minded, the mixed religion, the mixed politics, everything that you want to put in one basket, you have it in Lebanon with all the problems of the world at the same time. They need to understand that. Once they understand that, they will fight like we are fighting, like my father did. And this is what, honestly, to be real, this is what I look forward. And I would love to have a drink with you in Zabura as well. This is another short-term resolution.